Hello guys, my name is Mark from jazzguitarlessons.net. So today I'd like to discuss a little bit about patterns and learning patterns on the guitar, which is something that seems to be quite a big deal because a lot of people say, okay, I picked up this book and they say learn patterns and all the positions, and then another teacher tells me to do this, and of course on the website there's also patterns and ideas. So here's a few things you might want to take into consideration when learning the patterns within the scales, or whatever your aim is. First thing is that I personally found there's a few problems within positions. Let's say we do a 6-2, like this is the Berkeley method, or you can think of Cage, C major like this. Sorry. Okay, so if you're learning a strict pattern and you're saying, all right, my pattern is, one of the most popular. The problem with this is if you're trying to play it in a way that you would actually play it when improvising, you would probably stumble upon spots that are really hard for you. Here, that's good. That's weird. So there's some spots where you'd find trouble like fingering it well. And what I think is, well, when you're really improvising, you don't need this gymnastic because you could always go out of the position and find your next note, so that's totally fine. So problem number one of learning patterns within position. Problem number two is usually people don't practice the same pattern ascending and descending. Let's say I'm doing this, for instance. Okay. What would I do when going down? I would do yeah, right? Which is not how I went up. I'm not practicing the same pattern. If I was going to come down the same way I went up, I would do this, which is much harder. Right? Okay, so that's the second problem. Say another of the patterns that's really popular is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Da, 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 da. Right? When you get to the end, and then what you do when you come back, the first reflex, right? It's just to do it the opposite way. But if you were really learning the pattern, you do it this way, which is much harder. Right? So I have a problem staying in position. As you can see, I'm fumbling all over my notes and I'm unsure what the next note is because it's not anchored in something that I hear and I'm used to play. So here's my first suggestion, which I've made in another video a few years back, and it's learn intervals. Simple intervals, and don't worry about the positions at all. So let's say we're in C major and you want to learn your thirds. Just go ahead and learn your thirds in C major. That's C, right? And then don't worry about sticking in a position and find the next third. C, D, F, C, I'm not even in position anymore. E, G, and change strings whenever you feel like it. So doing this, you will discover your fretboard at the same time as you're learning the interval. And you're not learning a pattern, you're learning an interval. And you should really start at the lowest possible note. That's as low as it gets. E, G, right? So when you do this, you could pick the interval of a third, you could pick the interval of a fourth. Sorry. Right? Which is really fun. You can pick fifths, sixths, and sevenths, or whatever intervals you want to practice at. And of course, you go as high as you can. And when you go down, let's say I stopped here, use the same motion, the same direction for your interval. So you can learn your ascending thirds, you can learn your descending thirds. That's descending. So when you get really high, and what's fun is that you decide when you shift position. So you learn your fretboard, you learn to connect positions, you learn to identify intervals, you learn to identify notes. So there's a bunch of stuff that you get out of this that you don't get out of. Even if you do that in 5 positions, you're only strictly going for the gymnastics of it. So that's the first suggestion, starting simply with intervals and practicing them throughout your fretboard in, let's say, in C major, but you could do other keys as well. The other practice tip I have is compound intervals. So if you practice thirds, you may want to do an ascending third and then a descending one. So ascending, descending. So now you're learning a pattern, but you're not even learning a pattern, you're just saying it's 2 thirds that I'm learning and they're ascending, descending. And you do that with fourths, with fifths, with sixths, with etc. And then you're much more advanced than if you were just taking your scale and going to. And the other thing that's interesting, you have to fish for your notes. You have to find which notes are there. And this brings you to understanding, hopefully, more of what the scale degrees are. And you can most likely be singing with it. If you're playing a wrong note, it's because you know you heard it's a wrong note and not because you relied on the fingering pattern of your eyes to identify it's a wrong note, right? This is really important. And of course, when you do compounds like this, you can do double compound. You could like imply another pattern. Let's say you play a third. Instead of playing the third on the next degree, here you play the third up higher. C, E, E. You know, this type of stuff, everything is possible. So that's, yeah, I think you're learning great structures, and from that point on, if you can do double compounds and stuff, you can start to learn your triads. And you're not even learning them as fingering patterns, but you're still learning them as, well, it's 2 thirds stacked together. And same thing when you learn to play arpeggios, like instead of seeing them stuck in position and having to visualize and really retain a lot of information, you just think of them in intervals, and this is really powerful. Did I tell you I love intervals so far? That's really the point of this video, I think. And any structures that you feel that you would like to learn, and now we're talking major scale, but it could be within melodic minor, harmonic minor, it could be in the diminished scale, it could be in whatever scale you want. You can more easily access it without being stuck with a visual feedback of position, box, whatever. Lastly, what I want to talk about before I finish this video is there's a great book by, what's his name, Joe Cocker? Jerry, not Joe Cocker. Coker, Jerry Coker. Here we go. Patterns for Jazz, with a great ad for a Bob Mintzer book on the back. So this book is great because you don't have no tabs, you have only standard notation, so it's not for your instruments, not instrument specific, it's not dogmatic. Plus you learn patterns within key progressions. So let's say I wanted to learn just the triads, well, you learn it in the cycle of fourths. So you have to fish for your own notes, and if you've done your homework with what I've said in the first part of this video, you should be fine finding this, and you stick to your tempo. And the Jerry Coker book tells you, alright, this one you play at 80 BPM. You flick your metronome, you play it, or you attempt to play it through the 12 keys, and it doesn't matter if you stick to the same fingerings next time, or if you really sticking to a position or whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as you're able to do it at the tempo prescribed, you're done. Move on to the next one. And I think there's 350 patterns in the book total. So for anyone who's really serious about learning jazz, you could probably take just half of the book and be completely fine with patterns. So that's some food for thoughts. Of course, as always, please let me know if there's any questions. I'm always there on the website to answer whatever you come up with or you have questions about. Highly recommended Patterns for Jazz for treble clef instruments by Jerry Coker. Well, there's four authors on this book, so great reference. And I'll talk to you soon on the jazzguitarlessons.net. Improve your jazz guitar playing with a real teacher. Take care.